thank you for joining episode 2 of the Betfair Exchange Pro Live Series. I'm joined here today by bookmaker, former analyst and professional bettor, Rob Waterhouse. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Yeah, it's great to have you here today, Rob. A little bit of context for those who are just joining us and missed last week with Mark Lamborn and Matt Taylor. The Pro Live Series looks at what really is behind the exchange, being our customers. The Betfair Exchange is only as good as its customers. Other than that, it's a piece of technology, and our customers are the ones who bring it to life. So we're bringing this here in lieu of the events due to COVID-19. Obviously, it would be great to meet you all in person, like we do regularly through the VIP program. However, we'll settle for the Zoom session today, and it gives us great opportunity to speak to someone like Rob Waterhouse. Yeah. So welcome, Rob. I think we'll get started.
Delighted to be here.
Cheers. We'll get started with a few questions in regards to your early days, I guess, and particularly through the lens of an exchange. What did your business look like prior to Betfair arriving in Australia?
Well, I suppose it was very different, and Betfair has changed. It's been a revolutionary change to betting. I suppose I was always very excited about Betfair, but I could see it was always the future. I was actually asked about 1996 or 95 to write an idea for a gambling type company, and they offered to pay me a fee, which was very nice of them. And I said, "Oh, how long do you want?" They said 50 pages. I said, "Well, why don't I write a page and a half first off and see if you think I'm thinking on the right lines?" And I described an exchange. I'd seen the Iowa University exchange, and I gave them a page and a half. They said, "Oh, that would never work. No, don't worry about doing that study." Well, Betfair's proven it's been a big success, hasn't it?
Definitely. I think in Australia it has had its sort of challenges, but around the world, it's liquidity continues to grow.
I think Australia is a bit harder for Betfair because the betting market was more competitive than what was in England, and was very the bookmakers were very aggressive, took strong positions, whereas in England it was very much a retail type market.
What was the core sort of driver there as you speak about competitiveness in Australia compared to the UK? Why?
I think they'd put up with would it be 40 years of high taxation in the UK, winning bets tax, which meant that it was very hard for a professional punter to make a success of it, and the bookmakers were only wanting to deal with the people that were actually losing punters, and it just wasn't competitive.
Where do you see Australia sitting now? You talk about the competitive marketplace of perhaps a decade or two ago. Where does the Australian betting landscape sit now in comparison to the UK?
Well, unfortunately, taxes have gone up greatly in Australia, and that, of course, has seen us lose lots of ground to other sorts of betting. I guess sports betting, but even casinos and what else. And I think it's a great shame. I think that it's a shame the administrators don't realise that they're killing the goose and slaying the golden egg.
Do you see that as Betfair's biggest challenge? And when I say this, I'm referring to the high taxation.
Well, the high taxation is extraordinarily important. Whatever is the tax, whatever is taken out by the government, that has a huge, not the other thing, basic notice, that has a huge effect on the amount of turnover.
I guess it's no secret that you're an on-course bookmaker, and we've seen each other on track for many years. And I want to sort of look at the relationship between what happens on course and what happens on the exchange. So looking at your prices, how do they work with the exchange market?
It'd be very hard to make success of being a bookmaker without being very mindful of the exchange all the time. It's a superior market to the on-course market so far as it has so many people involved. And as Francis Galton taught us, there's a lot in the wisdom of crowds, and the fact is it's a very big market, the Betfair market, and no on-course bookmaker could make a success of it without being mindful of what's happening on Betfair.
I can hear you talking to the accuracy of Betfair. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Betfair starting price. Not so much as the betting feature of the starting price, but when you go back through the form, we have things like the morning line or your rated price. Where does the Betfair starting price sit in terms of a horse's true probability?
Well, I think it's very close to true probability of the horse. Look, we can find errors and anomalies in SP. We can laugh after the result. We can say that was a stupid price, wasn't it?
Yes.
But it's better than anything else. It's a very good guide.
Thinking more towards the accuracy of SP, have you seen any trends since you've been a bookmaker, both on course, off course, and betting, with yourself and syndicates? Has the Betfair, has the closing price on Betfair become more accurate or less accurate over time?
I suppose my straightforward answer to say is it has become more accurate over time, save in the last 18 months. And I reckon the last little bit of Betfair, there are some faults with it, I think, but other people may not agree with me. I think they actually overreact and things become too short at times.
I guess that leads to a conversation we were having downstairs earlier in regards to how far a horse can drift and when does it become a bet. I think often on Betfair we see horses which you could say are off the map and look like the right ones and they fail, and then we see horses which drift and look friendless. And they turn out they lead and they win.
Betfair's right a lot, though, by the same time.
Yeah. Did this phenomena exist when you're an on-course bookmaker with little regard to Betfair?
It has existed forever. And what was the expression we would say? When enough people get into the rowboat of a particular horse, the rowboat sinks.
Yeah.
There's too many people. So things can become too short a price. But I think Betfair can, especially in the last minute or two, can get to very short prices.
We just spoke then about horses being overbet or underbet. Yeah. I want to talk about what form factors are overbet. When you're going through the form, do you look at something and say, gee, this has this, so I expect it to be really strong on the exchange late?
Yes. Look, I think, of course, the Betfair SP takes into account everyone's opinion, and the best judges have more votes than the others, and the horses have good form factors. And I and other people like they're the ones that tighten and become very hard in Betfair. So I suppose every form factor is given its right importance in the Betfair market.
Coming from someone who, obviously I love gambling and love racing, and like many customers, I like to give it a crack, and far from, being any good at it, but I definitely enjoy it. I would say that the Soul Leader and the faster type horses attract a lot of interest.
Yeah.
Do you have any comment in regards to how they behave on an exchange?
Yeah, well, I think they're the ones that are very much in demand, obviously. People love horses, but also the horse that shows great turn of foot and runs fast sections is very well found on Betfair.
You've spoken about the wisdom of the crowd or the accuracy in the Betfair price. How much do you work in your post-race analysis, the Betfair move? Even though it may have been wrong, if it was a blower, do you take that into your account in your form?
The starting price is very important in the form, and we keep a full record of it. And I think it is an important factor.
I'd be interested to understand the difference, and it's something that I don't think many of us would know, and you'd have some unique knowledge as to it. What are the differences between Betfair in Australia and how it operates in somewhere like the UK?
It's a much bigger market in the UK, and to the point it sort of dominates. Everyone just bets on Betfair, whereas Australia, I think it's quite as important. But it's a great game to play.
What would an Asian market like Hong Kong, Japan, what would it look like with a Betfair product?
Well, I think it would only improve. I know the Hong Kong people and Japanese people are very touchy about it. They're also touchy in Hong Kong and in Japan of non-residents of Hong Kong and Japan betting into their totes, which for the life of me I can't understand why they'd see it as being a concern. But their racing would improve with the Betfair product because at the moment it's all tote.
Interestingly, I think racing administrators in Australia sort of see Betfair as the enemy of parimutuel betting.
Yeah, it's wrong.
Yeah, wrong. Do you share that view?
Well, it's asinine view. It's nothing more stupid than that. It actually helps the tote turnout. An example is that in the middle 50s, the Sydney Turf Club decided to try and help the tote that stop bookmakers working for 6 weeks. Well, they thought it stopped working fully. And after 6 weeks, they realised their tote turnout dropped amazingly. You need to have the competition between the two markets. And the competition of Betfair and the totes makes the tote hold more money.
Interestingly, some years ago we saw the Warrnambool Carnival, which I know you love going down there.
Yes.
Do you recall when Betfair dropped out?
Oh, I do indeed, and it was from my point of view, it was absolutely wonderful. we wrote so much more business, and I felt I was the only person that actually knew what the prices things should be. It was a joyous time.
Interestingly, you say there was a joyous time for your business, probably because you had some confidence in your pricing.
Yes, of course.
There were many bookmakers which were they sort of lost?
Yes, totally lost, and wanted to play no part. Thought it was just hopeless. And we'd got a lot of bet backs from bookmakers. I don't really understand why, but that's what happened.
Interesting. So I guess we've established that the tote is not an enemy to Betfair, or Betfair's not an enemy to the tote. Betfair's not an enemy to the on-course operation. They aid it. With the influx of European corporate fixed odds bookmakers, excuse me. What do you see the relationship with fixed odds bookmakers betting at 130%? What would happen to their book percentages without the exchange?
Well, look, I must say that in the old days, we used to bet very small margins in any event. So I reckon it was more competitive. There were more people at the race. It was much more competitive. I know without Betfair today, bookmakers have bet to much bigger margins. But I think that's, if the market were actually on course, I think the margins would be much less. Even 10 years ago or so, the best price on course, it's quite competitive on course today. The APN prices, the straight prices on course are now taken for the corporates, and it's the 8th best price, which is a bit disingenuous because that's not the best price you get. Most certainly, the on-course bookmakers over the APN prices all the time.
I understand you are quite a critic of top fluck betting, or when I say critic, you say it's lost its value.
Yeah, well, it's always been problematical, isn't it? Because if you backed a horse top luck with bookmakers setting the market, of course, they depress the prices, so you're a big loser. It's always been problematic.
Would you like to see the official price coming back from the track as opposed to the New South Wales official price or that jurisdictions?
Well, I suppose the first thing I'd say is that it should be, rather than the 8th best price, should be the best price available to the corporates, or indeed the best price available to the on-course bookmakers, perhaps a mixture of both. And I'd like to see a much smaller margin. If they did that, it would be down to 104, 105 euros.
Have you been consulted by any jurisdictions?
No, they're not. The jurisdictions aren't what the on-course bookmakers think.
So I think we're all in agreement that Betfair helps racing as a product.
Absolutely.
I'd like to know, what are the biggest challenges that Betfair face? If we say, okay, how does this business look twice as big as it is now? How do we have the liquidity early that the UK has? What do we need to do today and this financial year to make that happen?
Reduce the taxes.
How do we do that if racing administrators are imposing on us?
Well, you've got to use your charm to reduce them. Well, they'd actually get more revenue if the taxes are lower.
Yeah.
I suppose that's the argument.
Would it be useful, do you think, and I'm sure our commercial team, are heavily engaged with administrators showing them this, but data like what happened at Warrnambool when it dropped out and what happens without an exchange, what would happen to turnover as book percentages went up?
Yeah, well, in the current situation, there's no doubt that the turnover will be far less without Betfair.
Many clients that I work with through the VIP program talk about not being able to get on, and when they can get on, the markets are too efficient because they've been up for 3 or 4 days. I'd like to pick your brain as to what's your opinion about getting on and the accuracy of markets because of early betting.
Yeah. Well, I hear people complain all the time about early betting and what a huge disadvantage it is. They have short memories. When I was a young man, you had betting shops all over Tasmania and the Northern Territory. And my father used to get the early markets from there and then fluctuations from both places. And Tasmania and Northern Territory betting up for 2 or 3 days before the event. So it's the same thing as it is now. And we used to bet pre-posts from the office every race day. I think people have short memories. I think it's always been well picked over.
I would like to look at sort of where does Betfair fit at the moment into your business?
Well, I have one eye on Betfair all the time at the races. I want to do what I want to do, but I want to be very aware of the market because it is a very big market. It's very important for me to be aware of the movements.
Last week, Mark Lamborn, who I know used to work on your stand, he talked about how prices on Betfair, you could find the true price of a horse. It would get out to its true odds, especially speaking about the rougher chances.
Yeah.
Often on your board, I see, unlike other bookmakers who want to sit at, they might cap it at 100 to 1 or 50 to 1, you're really keen to sort of push out those roughies and chase Betfair. And sometimes you're betting way over Betfair on the longer price runners. Why?
Well, I've always liked to lay all runners. If I've marked a horse 5,000 to 1, why shouldn't we be betting 500 to 1? In the old days, we used to put up 1,000 to 1 on the board, and we'd often write tickets, put up 2,000 to 1 or even more than that, and slide on the board. The stewards weren't allowed to do that now. But I've always wanted to lay those sort of horses, and not many of them win.
Yeah, I'm sure. Talking about laying now specifically, I think that prior to Betfair, so obviously on Betfair we can lay a horse. That's no secret. Prior to that, how could a punter lay a horse without Betfair?
Well, under the rules of racing, it did say you could back a horse to lose, and I used to put up my board a price about the favourite to lose, and it was very competitive.
Yes.
It was very competitive. In the fight against Betfair by the authorities, they changed the rule whereby we could no longer offer a price for the horse to lose, which is madness. And of course, they allowed Betfair but didn't bring the rule back, which is just wrong.
I understand. More recently, you've moved online with the introduction of the world we live in at the moment, being COVID-19. How have you found the online space? Are you heavily involved?
Yes.
How's the business going?
Look, the business is going very well. It most certainly is. There are a lot more punters online than there are at the races, and it's going very well. We're giving a very good, aggressive service, and very pleased the way it's going.
Yeah, excellent. More recently, during the week, we saw some results come out of Tom's new venture capitalist fund. Yeah, pretty exciting. It's a new space he's moved into. Give us a little overview of what he's doing in that space.
Look, he's been licensed as a fund manager. It's a small fund open to professional type investors, and it's gone very well the first 9 months it's been open. He's taken some very good positions, and he's been rewarded for it.
Excellent. Talking more now into the COVID sort of landscape, betting on track. Are you betting back on track at the moment?
Yes, I am. I'm one of the few bookmakers. There were 5 of us on Wednesday and 4 the other day, and I'm not sure how many there are tomorrow at Rose Hill, but I'm looking forward to being at Rose Hill.
Question is, obviously, there's less punters on track than when I'm sure your business was in its sort of peak, when there was huge queues in front of your stands. Yes. Why do you still go?
Well, I do enjoy it, and look, the professionals all still find a way of being there, and they perform more than half. They're actually more than half my business on course, and I'm happy to give them a service. And perhaps foolishly think I'll win it.
What would you say to the racing clubs today? How do we get more people on course?
Oh, well, if I were in charge of racing, I'd have 2 take dividends, one taking out 20% off course and one taking out 0 on course. I'd have no fees at all to on course bookmakers. I'd make sure all catering was more competitive. You'd get much bigger crowds.
Interestingly, there you spoke about takeout rates with the toad and as a way to stimulate activity. Do you think we ran a poll on the VIP Twitter account during the week as to what would be the key factor to make people increase early liquidity?
Yes.
Overwhelmingly, the response was a lower commission takeout rate. How would that look for you? Like, would you be interested in putting up your prices, or do you think syndicates would be more interested showing their hand at perhaps a 0 or very reduced commission rate early?
Without doubt. Without doubt. So unfortunately, the commission rates are silent killers to everybody. It just leaves the system. So we just have to fight against it.
Excellent. I think what we'll do now, there's an opportunity here for some questions and answers.
Great.
If we can find 1 or 2 quality questions, we might pose them to you from the audience. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, got to the audience out there, if you want to fight through a few questions. I know the only question we've got there is, would you close the blind behind you?
We've moved over a bit.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, well, I just want to say thanks, Robbie. I really appreciated your time here today. I wish you all the best in the future, and happy betting.
Yeah, very good. Look forward to it.
Maybe just quickly, Farnan, it's favoured in the Runs of the Rose tomorrow. What do you think are the chances?
I haven't got to that race yet, and obviously we'll get to it this afternoon. I just sort of know that it's hard to go from being the best 2-year-old to being the best early 3-year-old. They all make weight. Often the precocious horse wins, and he's got to actually do that. Gay's done it many times before, so I'm not suggesting she won't have done it here. But that's my first blush thought.
Understand. Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for the support. This has been episode 2 of the Pro Live Exchange series. If you have any questions, please shoot me an email. I'll make it available to all of you following the session. Thank you very much, Rob.